Jordan Peterson was on the Iced Coffee Hour podcast, and in the clip that I'm about to show you, he explains in a profound way what is the deepest truth of Christianity. Listen to this clip, and then I'll finish with why this is so important for you and for everyone to know, especially in our modern world.
So when God throws Adam and Eve out of paradise, or when they actually fall out of paradise because of their pride, which is a more accurate way of representing it, God installs a cherubim, which is a kind of a monstrous angel, and a sword that's on fire that turns every which way. And what does that mean? Well, it means that a sword obviously cuts, and a flaming sword burns. And so a flaming sword cuts and burns. And if it turns every which way, there's no escaping it. Well, why? Well, if you want to regain paradise, then everything that isn't appropriate has to be cut and burned away. And that can be a lot. So people are terrified of that. Like I've read metaphysical speculations that hell, there's no difference between hell for the sinful and the sight of the sword that cuts and burns everything away. Because if you're 95% lies, then anything that fixes you would look like death or worse. And so the terrifying ideal that destroys everything about you that's not worthy, that's rough.
I feel like everyone experiences life in terms of colors. And some people's colors just happen to be more vibrant than others. So for example, if I think I'm happy, if I think I'm as happy as I can possibly be, I'm a 10 out of 10, or I would say like I have 10 out of 10 joy. What if that someone else is just 6 out of 10? And what if
You do see that with temperamental variation. I mean, positive emotion can keep spiraling upward till it hits mania. Like there's an upper limit because it's complicated. But if we just talk about positive emotion per se, not about meaning, let's say, just positive emotion. As you move up the scale of positive emotion, it gets more and more intense, but it limits out into pathology. So manics are very happy.
But meaning produces positive emotion. Meaning is positive,
that's
right?
complicated. No, not exactly. It's complicated because sometimes meaning can produce misery, especially in the short term. That happens with kids all the time. Look, there's a huge psychological literature that purports to show that couples without children are happier than couples with children. So then you think, well, children are a burden. No, your definition of quality in life is stupid. It's like, of course you're not happy if you have children. It's like you're worried about them. Why? Because they might die. Or be hurt. So that's on your mind. But that doesn't mean that it's not meaningful. Right? And so in a very profound way, you have to snap the connection between hedonism, either on the positive or negative emotion scale, and meaning. Like the relationship is by no means one-to-one. So let me give you an example. So in Notes from Underground, Dostoevsky put forward a very trenchant criticism of utopian socialism, and purposefully so, because that was one of Dostoevsky's prime focuses of contemplation. And he said that if you provided people with all of the hedonic delights that they would want, and you put them in a situation where that was provided to them continually, all they would do is smash that up so that something strange and mysterious and unpredictable would happen, because we have this requirement for what? Suffering? Maybe. How about the suffering that forces you to develop? Is that an instinctual demand? Probably. People will pick false adventure over no adventure. Like we're wired for trouble, for sure, to seek it out. People are caused trouble all the time, especially when they don't have anything vital to do. In fact, that is what they'll do, is cause trouble, because that's a false adventure.
It's hard to imagine that the highest quality of life does not produce the highest average positive emotion.
I'm not sure about that. I don't know if that's optimal. Like if you're listening to music, the happiest music is elevator music. It's just happy. Like it's trivial, but that's the thing. Like there's a lack of depth to unadulterated happiness.
But the depth provides positive emotion.
Right, but the depth also is associated with suffering. This is, see, you've apprehended this to some degree because you said that the notion of a call to responsibility was attractive to you. Well, that's a burden. Responsibility is a burden. There's a weight to it. Now, you might say, what did Nietzsche say? He who has a why can bear any how.
Mhm.
You could say, well, if the purpose is sufficiently noble, the weight is irrelevant. That's a better way of conceptualizing it, I think. And I think that's right. So you want to have a orientation towards your life and the world that makes that makes even the suffering, no, it's not just justifiable. Welcome.
One of my good friends, a Catholic priest, once said to me, and it stuck with me, there is so much wasted suffering in our world today. In general, we have forgotten how to suffer. We have forgotten what suffering does for us. And we, in fact, believe suffering is a bug, not a feature of human life. And this has left us naked in the face of suffering and has made things worse for us. And it doesn't have to be this way. In fact, deep within Christianity, it's not. In the gospel, Christ tells his disciples that I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. And my Father cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, so that it will be even more fruitful. Think about that. As you resolve in your life to aim up, take on as much responsibility as possible, and live for God and the good, things don't get easier, more pleasurable, or comfortable. You are pruned to grow higher and do more good, bear more fruit, win more souls. A tree, when it's pruned, is cut back, looks humiliated and ugly. It suffers so that it will grow higher, more full, and produce more fruit in the future. Paul writes that he delights in weaknesses, insults, hardships, persecutions, and difficulties because the power of God is made perfect in weakness. You are made strong through your sufferings. Have you considered that what you specifically suffer from is your specific path to sainthood? Imagine how you could help others and contribute to the world having gone through and overcoming the suffering that you are going through. The treasure of Christianity that so many in the world desperately need right now is that through suffering with God, you are pruned and made a stronger version of yourself. I can't imagine suffering without God. Any good that I've done in my life is the result of God forming me into a better man through suffering and pruning off the excess, dead, useless, and detrimental branches of my being so that I might be of higher and best use for Him.